wanted to ask you, going into the scrimmage on Friday, do you all know if you're going to have any minutes restrictions on guys? And another question is, what role has your support staff played in determining workloads and schedule, practice regimen, leading up to the games coming up?
Yeah, nothing's changed for us with regards to the medical and the collaboration between them and our coaching staff. So we're always going to utilize them. And this is obviously unique where we're coming back after having a 4-month layoff. So you can imagine we're doing the best job we can building these guys up to get them back to the point where, they're in conditioned shape, for games. So they're very, very much involved. My feeling is, and we haven't gotten into too much detail, but going into these scrimmages, certainly there'll be limitations on minutes. We'll want guys to feel comfortable with the 3 scrimmages we have. We'll try to look at different players, different combinations of players, and then just try to slowly amp up our guys to get ready to play, once August 1st gets here.
Thank you, Coach. Royce Young, you're up next. Royce, go ahead.
Hey, Billy. I know it's still a little bit of a ways off your first game against Utah. But, it is kind of hard not to look at the unique nature of the season ended, or the season was suspended with you guys about to play the Jazz, and now it picks up for y'all playing the Jazz. Kind of 2 questions. Do you find it do you like the idea of kind of resuming your season in a way? Is it kind of poetic, I guess is the way I'm asking that, to kind of pick it up against the Jazz? And do you go back to like your your game plan that you had March 11th, or is it all new, the one that you never got to use?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting just because that game was kind of the start of everything being shut down, not only in the NBA, but I think our country. And, to be able to come back, I think the feeling was like with the 18 games that were remaining, I think is what we had left, and now having 22 teams in Orlando, they were going to try to somehow fill out those last 18 games with opponents that were still left on the schedule. So, I mean, it is great to pick up with Utah, as the season kind of came to a close at that point in time and was postponed. We're certainly picking it up together. What's interesting, we're playing Boston in a scrimmage here on Friday. That was kind of our last game before going into the Utah game. So, a lot of things that are picking up from kind of where we left off, which is great. And, but I think more so than that, just, how we're utilizing this time as best we can to get prepared and ready to play against Utah once that, the regular season gets back, in swing for those last 8 games.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Coach. Joe Masato. Joe, you're up.
Hey, Billy. I've read that some coaches before these scrimmages are maybe coordinating a little bit with each other about what they might want to get out of both of their teams, and especially playing the Celtics and 76ers, who you obviously won't see on your side of the bracket. Like, do you talk to Brad Stevens at all about certain looks they might want to see, or is it pretty competitive?
No, I mean, I think that we're always open to doing that. That there's no problem. I think it's still a little bit a ways away. Brad and I may connect. Brett Brown and I may connect as well. Terry and I could maybe connect as well. But I think everybody's kind of focused on their team and what they need. And, if there were certain situations that you wanted to take a look at, or things that you wanted to do, you maybe have a conversation. But I think everybody's kind of focused on their own team. And it's going to be played like a regular game. So, you can talk about, hey, listen, some 3-quarter court traps, some zones, some different things on the side. You can look at some different things. Or, if somebody said, hey, listen, can you throw us a couple of looks? We want to get some work against this. I would not be opposed to do that. But at the same point, too, I think everybody's focused on their personnel, their team, and getting their team ready to play and what they need. But I would imagine with getting these 3 scrimmages that there'll be some dialogue between coaches.
Thank you, Coach. Eric G. Eric G., you are up.
Billy, they're going to shorten the quarters, I guess, for these scrimmages, make them, instead of 12 minutes, 10 minutes. And I was just kind of wondering, how much does that affect what you're going to do rotation-wise, or does that affect anything about how you handle these scrimmages at all, some of the little changes they're going to make?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is going to be going into Friday. where our players are at and our teams at physically. What combinations do we want to look at of guys playing together? The veteran guys like Steven, like Dennis, like Chris, like Gallo, Andre. What's a good workload number that will work with the medical staff and in conjunction with them to figure out what's a good, number of minutes to help them get back into rhythm and into playing against, competition. This will also be the first time that our guys have played against somebody different than themselves, really for a long time, going all the way back to the middle of June, because when the facilities were open back in June and guys could come in and work out, 1-on-0, there was certainly guys playing pickup ball and they were playing against you. So we haven't played against anybody in such a long time. So we're going to try to use that time to, get our guys ready and geared up to playing. So there's a lot of things that we'll look at, going into the game on Friday. But the biggest thing is, combinations of players, minute workload, and how much some of these guys are going to play, and giving some other guys an opportunity to play more. But whether it's 10 minutes or 12 minutes, I think it's fine.
All right, Coach, we've got two more here for you. We're going to toss it next to Cliff Brunt. Cliff, you're up.
Hey, Coach, is the process a little different bringing back a veteran player like Chris Paul, who's 35, versus like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's 22? Does that factor into how you work these guys back in to try to get them ready to play?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty, extensive thing that we'll do. The first thing is always speaking to the player. I think that, Chris knows his body better than anybody. And I think all these guys that are veteran players know their body better than anybody else. So you certainly want to get feedback from them. I think the other thing, too, is for somebody like, Shai or Chris, whoever it may be, you're going to always look at their loads, how much workload they're putting out, in practice, in workouts, and those kind of things. And then what makes sense for each player. And Chris knows his body, so does Shai, so does Steven. So you're going to work with those guys on helping them get, and they understand the amount of time that they have before our first game. So it's not like we're trying to get it all back in 1 week or in 5 days. We know we've got some time here to build up, and we want to build up properly where we're looking after these guys' health and they feel like they're, incrementally getting better and stronger as this, so to speak, training camp unfolds. That's the biggest thing for us right now.
Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.
Last one for you. We're gonna toss it back to Eric. Eric, you're up again.
Yeah, Billy. You scrimmaged a good amount in the beginning of the season in preparation for this season. Has that been something that's kind of helped with understanding what these guys can handle going back into the restart, that you scrimmage so much in the beginning of the season, you scrimmage a lot, going into this camp too?
Yeah, I mean, we have, and it's been totally different, Eric, than it was, like we've gone, a lot of days in a row here. I would say in this condensed period, and it's more of, it's really more a reflection of our players, the attention to detail and the focus that they had during the virus to find ways to keep themselves, in good shape, to try to do what they could to keep their weight and their cardio at a good place. And with all those things being said, those guys did all that stuff. Now, they were not in basketball shape or basketball timing shape because we just weren't afforded the opportunity to do those things. So they've done a really, really good job. But this has been, I think, if you would ask those guys, very physically challenging for them to get back to a level that we're trying to get back to. And there's been a lot probably more condensed in these 10 or 12 days that we've had than maybe training camp, because training camp, it was like, 5 or 6 days, and then you already had your preseason game. So I think for some of these guys, the June and part of July was almost like the September going into training camp, where it was kind of a buildup. So, but these, 2.5 weeks here, I mean, it's been pretty intense for these guys, and these guys have done a good job handling it all. And I think a lot of it had to do with the focus that they had, why we were not playing.
Did everybody participate today, Billy?
No, we had we worked around. We had some guys do contact. We had some guys do non-contact. So it was a mix of different players. Nothing in terms of real injuries or anything else like that, as much as looking at guys' loads, where they're at, and the health of each player and who needs what, because like I said, we've gone a lot of days in a row trying to build up that stamina and that endurance.